All right, we'll go one more minute, and then I'm gonna start going through, just some things on the DBQ, just to try to point you in the right direction for those of you that are doing some work on that. And obviously, for the people that are on, if you have any questions on the DBQ, feel free to jump in. I'm happy to help you out in any way I can. And then we're gonna roll through the notes that say the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment. I posted those, I think, 2 days ago. They should be like 3 or 4 posts down, and we'll run through that, and then that'll be it for today. All right. Well, I'm going to get going here. And like I said, if you have any questions, just jump in. First off, with the DBQ that I assigned earlier in the week, the prompt is discuss the impact of the Enlightenment on the Industrial Revolution and the French Revolution. And, like most of our prompts, that's how does the Enlightenment affect the Industrial Revolution? How does the Enlightenment affect the French Revolution? Give a specific example of how it affects each. Make sure you do that in your thesis. Don't just do industrialization. Don't just do French Revolution. Make sure that you specifically say this is connecting to the Industrial Revolution. This is connecting to the French Revolution. Don't leave it out there like for me to try to piece it together on what part of the question you're talking about. So in the thesis, make sure both of those are represented. When you're looking at your documents, the first document is Thomas Hobbes. So he's going to be an Enlightenment figure, and he's talking about the advantages of science over I guess we could say like human compassion or human emotion, and that certainly can play into the French Revolution if you want to do that. I think there's a lot of ways to play it, but really the reason Thomas Hobbes is there is to play that into the Industrial Revolution. So when we're looking at Thomas Hobbes there, that's really kind of a linker to the Industrial Revolution and like why possibly people are so callous in the Industrial Revolution, that it's nature over nurture, baby. Like this is how it needs to be done. This is science. These people are strong. These people are weak. That could be taken out of Hobbes' statement. You could also go the other way with Hobbes and say that this new rational thought created types of movements like communism. That would be another way that you could maybe go with the Hobbes document. So that's really supposed to link with the Industrial Revolution, but you can use it either way. The second document is Malthus. And he's talking about like let's just run the poor over. They're weak. They're dumb. Let nature take its course. That is the Industrial Revolution. That's when he's writing to, and you could maybe link Hobbes and Malthus. I think that would probably be the ultimate goal there. There's some other things you can do with Malthus, but those are two ways to play with those documents. Document 3 is Rousseau. And, when you're looking at Rousseau, I feel like that's an easy French Revolution tie-in. So, the things that he's saying about a social contract and, laying into democracy and civil liberties and things of that nature can really play into the French Revolution. I'm not going to go too far because I want you to write your own paper, but, with Rousseau and the social contract, you could tie that into the Committee of Public Safety and some different things there. So Rousseau is probably best with the French Revolution. I could figure out a way to connect him to the Industrial Revolution, but that wouldn't be the way I would go. So that's document 3. Document 4, I think, is the hardest document there, and that's the picture of the factory system. You can go one of two ways, kind of, you could use, Hobbes specifically probably, or just, use that document and connect it to the Enlightenment in general and talk about like the advances in technology and science and, the idea of, science is absolute and, this is why poor people are living in these conditions. And you could play that card as well. So, that picture right there is really just giving you the opportunity to tie probably the abuses of the Industrial Revolution into the Enlightenment. But you certainly could tie in like the manufacturing prowess, and I think you could go the other way with it too if you wanted to. I don't think it's your easiest route, but you could do it. And then the last one is, another a pretty simplistic document. I think it's, National Assembly, the Declaration of the Rights of Man. I think that's your easiest connection. That document pretty much is the Enlightenment. So I think that's a pretty easy connection there, and certainly, that's your French Revolution connection. So that's just a couple of the documents, and just how you would normally go at tackling that question. I had some emails from a couple of students that said that they were struggling on this question, which I can see why. I mean, it might seem difficult to, move Hobbes in there at first, but I think, there are a lot of ways to use that Hobbes document. So, I'd like it in today. If you can't get in today, it is what it is. I mean, I like them over the weekend. So on my Monday Zoom, or it might even be Tuesday Zoom that I can go over it with you. But anytime you turn in one of these DBQs, you're going to get a grade for it, a positive one, and you're also going to get some feedback from me on your paper. So don't think that like once you miss the DBQ window, that's it. That's certainly not the case. So if you can get those DBQs in, I'm happy to give you some feedback, happy to help you out. And also, like if you can use this forum as a way to ask questions about a DBQ, that's a really good idea. Like even, like I said, this one's due Friday, today. But, let's say that you did it, over the weekend, and on our Monday Zoom, you got some questions on it, like go for it, so that's the DBQ. I'll pause for a second. If anyone's got any questions on the DBQ that I posted or anything you're wondering about, or anything I can help you with. Okay. Before I dive into the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment review notes, I do want to point out that I posted a series of videos that you can watch on various different topics that are from the AP board. They are not, the most entertaining videos you've ever seen in your life. But if there is a topic that you're struggling on or you feel like you're weak on, that's probably your best source. And I mean, they're writing the test, so they're probably going to be giving you the most accurate information along with what you need to know that there can be there. So I have a link on there. It's pretty clearly labeled. You can watch any of those videos. So just another thing for you to review. So if no one's got any questions on the DBQ, then I'm going to push that aside, and we're going to dive into the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment. If you print it off or you've got up on your screen the notes on scientific revolution and the Enlightenment, that's helpful, because we'll just go through it. I'll just follow it down. So if you've got that going, that'll work out great. When we're looking at the scientific revolution, we're looking at about the mid 1500s to mid to late 1600s is about the time period. That 100-year time period is what we're working at with. End of the Renaissance. Now, the scientific revolution is really about the fact that by the end of the Renaissance, everything that we admired about the Greeks and the Romans has kind of been unraveled, and everything there is to learn about the Greeks and Romans to a degree has been learned. And now we're starting to like push beyond what the Greeks and Romans understood. So kind of entering that new frontier of knowledge where we've caught up, we got it. And now we're going to move on into some groundbreaking technology. And when you do that, you're going to find that the Greeks and Romans weren't right about everything, and this is going to kind of shatter this mindset that the Greeks and Romans are just like the perfect cultures and everything they did was perfect. And, that's the Renaissance. But now we're going to start to move past that. The guy that I guess we have to credit is really starting the scientific revolution is Nicholas Copernicus. And if you can go all the way down to the bottom there, a lot of that stuff there above there is a lot of fluff that we don't really need to get into. And just highlight Nick Copernicus. No, he's a Polish astronomer. He is going to publish a book called The Revolution of Heavenly Bodies. And in this book, Copernicus is going to support what is known as the heliocentric theory. And that's basically that the sun is in the center of our solar system and the planets revolve around it. Copernicus is not right about everything. His orbits are off, and it's far from perfect. But it's certainly against everything the Greeks and Romans thought. They went under what was known as the Ptolemaic system, which begins with a P, it's silent P, and that was that the Earth was in the center of the solar system and everything revolved around the Earth. Copernicus is obviously right. Copernicus is going to wait until he dies to release this book because he knows there's going to be a lot of trouble when he releases this book, and there is a lot of trouble. Immediately, everyone's like, how dare you challenge the Greeks and Romans? What do you think you're doing? And this is the beginning of the scientific revolution. Now we're starting to say, hey, the Greeks and Romans aren't right about everything. If you flip over, after Copernicus puts this out, we're going to get a guy named Bruno who's going to emerge. He's been popular on the test recently. I'm not sure if you'll be able to use this guy in an essay, but I'm just bringing him up. Bruno really does nothing as a scientist. All Bruno does is publicly come out and support Copernicus. So Bruno comes out and says, hey, I think Copernicus is right. This Ptolemaic system is ridiculous. And he's killed for it. The Catholic Church is like, Bruno, like that's not going to fly. And he's killed. So this is certainly taken as science versus religion, and that's certainly why he's pretty famous. Now, as we move down, some more prominent guys, we got Tycho Brahe and Kepler. They're kind of joined at the hip. Brahe's an astronomer. He's trying to prove Copernicus wrong. And in the process of doing that, he starts to realize that Copernicus is right. The data is proving Copernicus. Brahe dies. His assistant Kepler is going to put all that information together, and he is going to prove Copernicus's theory in a book called New Astronomy. So Kepler is going to prove that Copernicus is right. And the reasons that that's important is up until that point, like you could argue about Copernicus, you got the Greek and Roman people saying this dude's crazy. He has no idea what he's talking about. But once Kepler proves it with math, now, you have to admit that the Greeks and Romans were wrong. And now you got to be thinking well, what else were they wrong about? So that's the important thing about Kepler. Now, if you go down a little further, you got Galileo. I told you that Galileo is not going to invent the telescope. Okay, couple Dutch guys. But Galileo is really going to do the first significant work with a telescope. So as long as you can associate him with the telescope, that'll be good. Galileo is going to write a book called Dialogue of Two Great World Systems. In this book, he's going to debunk a lot of the things that the Romans and Greeks thought about the universe and stars and all that kind of stuff. And he's also going to cause some trouble with the church. He's going to call out the Pope and some cardinals, and he's going to be put on trial, and eventually Galileo's arrested for this. I've mentioned before that this is overblown, but it is taken as science versus religion, that stupid religion is punishing the poor scientist Galileo, and that's certainly the theme that everyone goes with. So just keep that in mind, because that's what you'll see. So that's Galileo. Moving down, our last major scientist here is Newton. He's certainly the rock star of the scientific movement, and Newton is going to write the Principia, which is going to be his work on gravity and inertia. It's in a science class, so as long as you know gravity, inertia, and Principia, Principia Mathematica is the full title, then you should be good with Newton. Just know he's the #1 guy in gravity, and you should be good with Newton. I do want to foreshadow just a little bit in that, Newton is regarded the #1 scientist ever until Albert Einstein. And when Einstein comes in and Newton comes out, that's going to cause a lot of Anglo-German tension later on in history. So just keep that in mind with Newton. I think that's all for those scientists. If we move down a little bit further, we'll get into empiricism and rationalism, or sometimes known as induction and deduction, which is, I think, one of the most confusing things to get out of this unit. Induction is Francis Bacon. And, Francis Bacon is, let's use reason Let's, analyze the situation, see what the facts are. Once we see the facts, we'll develop a hypothesis and move on. Um, you know, with our next guy, Rene Descartes under rationalism and what's called deduction, what he's going to do is he's going to like formulate a theory to start out with, and then he's going to try to prove it. So, like, I think Mr. Mustard, killed Miss Scarlet in the ballroom with a candlestick, and then he's going to try to sort that out. So he's going to start with a hypothesis and then move on from there. Bacon is the way science is going to go. Gather your facts first, look at the facts, then come up with a hypothesis. That'll be the way that science is going to go. So just keep in mind that Bacon is the way science will have. Not that deduction is completely useless. Like I said, with detectives, it can be important. But those are two different ways of using reason. I think that's it with Bacon and Descartes. The only other thing I'll say with Bacon is, Bacon is very important in regards to like making people think. Challenging science, challenging the authorities, challenging the church. Bacon's one of these guys where, hey, don't believe anything anybody tells you until you can sort it out for yourself. So, Bacon is more important than just like inductive reasoning. He kind of starts the that's gonna be the Enlightenment. So just he's an important figure, and if you can use Bacon in any way, use him. He's good. He's kind of like actual Bacon. He goes well with everything. So just keep that in mind. If we go further down, you'll see Thomas Hobbes. And Thomas Hobbes is going to begin some political thought that we're going to have between Hobbes and Locke. Hobbes comes first. Keep in mind, Hobbes lives through the English Civil War. He's a pretty bitter old man. And, Hobbes is going to write a book called The Leviathan. And the premise of The Leviathan is that all people are evil, and we're going to seek to maximize pleasure and minimize pain in any situation. And because that's how people are, like, you've got to have some system to keep these people in line. We are the Leviathan. We are the monster. And if, government isn't here to keep us under control, then it's just anarchy, and it's going to be horrible. In his mind, the best way to keep the Leviathan, the people, under control is through absolute monarchy. He believes that monarchs are bred and trained to effectively run people, and therefore they've got the best chance of doing it well. He's not saying every monarch's going to be perfect. He's just saying, on average, the monarch's going to do a better job than if you just picked John Doe off the farm and said, hey, run this puppy, He believes that a democracy won't work because people are selfish, and that people are going to vote in their own selfish interests, and that the government will eventually become bogged down and will be able to achieve nothing. So, he's certainly no advocate of democracy. The last thing I want to mention about Hobbes, though, which, people get confused on, and the AP loves to get you on it, is although he does believe in an absolute monarchy, he is no divine right guy. So he is not someone who believes that, like, the monarch is chosen by God to rule. That's not Hobbes. So that's Hobbes. And if you flip over there, we'll move into John Locke. John Locke's going to respond to Hobbes with what is called the two treatises of government. And in this book, John Locke is going to advocate what's called the tabula rasa, which is the clean slate theory, and John Locke says, listen, people aren't born bad. People aren't born good. People are born blank. And your friends, your family, your circumstances, they determine whether you're good or bad. He also does not believe that people, inherently work towards a direction of evil. John Locke feels that, people generally work to better themselves, and that this is a positive trait of humanity. In the first treatise, he pretty much just shreds Hobbes, where he just crushes absolute monarchy, calls out all the horrible monarchs, points out successful councils and democracies that have worked, and he just shreds Hobbes. Then the second treatise, Locke provides the alternative. and that is a republic, a democracy like we enjoy today. John Locke is the foundation of our country as far as the ideals. Franklin, Jefferson, Adams, Washington, all those guys they love John Locke. So his ideas are the building blocks of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and everything that we enjoy in this country as far as a democracy is concerned. So, just keep that in mind with John Locke, his building blocks of our country. Also, he believes that every human being has the right to life, liberty, and property. We'll change that to pursuit of happiness, ode to Locke, but he believes that these things all human beings have and no one can take it away from you. Natural rights. The final thing with Locke is Locke believes if the government is not serving the people and is serving a small group or maybe just serving themselves, then the government should be destroyed. If the government is not serving the people, then it's not a good government and the people need to destroy it. So that's Locke. The last thing that I want to mention with both of these guys is kind of a connector if somehow this comes up on the test. Although there are many differences between Hobbes and Locke, and you should not struggle to find one. One commonality is they both believe in a social contract. So Hobbes believes that there should be a social contract between the people and the monarch. Locke believes there should be a social contract between the government, the democratic government, and the people. So that's one thing they have in common is that social contract between government and people. So if you got to compare the two, that's the way to go. Going down a little bit further there, you'll see Adam Smith, and we'll start to get into some economics. Adam Smith is going to write a book called Wealth of Nations. In this book, he is going to suggest a laissez-faire policy. And what that means is that the government should keep its hands off business. That the best thing that can happen for business is the government does not get involved. Just let people compete. Let businesses go at each other. And in the end, the consumer is going to benefit. And then the economy is going to benefit. So this kind of hands-off mentality towards the economy, which is how capitalism is going to run through the 16, 17, and well into the 1800s, is that the government doesn't get involved. Just let these businesses run wild. It sure as heck ain't how capitalism runs today, because we found that if you just let these people run wild, that is what will happen, and they will take advantage of people. And Industrial Revolution, and we could look at another example of this is what the home countries are doing to the colonies. So Adam Smith's idea is going to be proven incorrect in regards to capitalism, but for a long time it's embraced, and it's going to cause some damage. Now, another thing that Adam Smith is going to propose is what's called the invisible hand. And what this says is, if you just allow people to pursue their own selfish interests, that in the end, that will benefit the economy. If you just let people pursue what they want to pursue and buy what they want to buy, in the end, the economy will flourish that way. And I will say that I think this does carry a lot of weight in capitalism. I mean, there's some good things about capitalism. There's bad things about capitalism. Probably a word that fits both of those is greed. And, a nice thing about capitalism is the desire for goods causes people to work super hard. You generate huge amounts of money. The problem with that is you're working hard for possessions that probably don't have a lot of meaning. So, there's goods and bads. But Smith is certainly proposing a greed concept with the invisible hand. I think that's it for Smith. If you flip over there, it's got some factors into why England is going to lead in industrialization. I'm going to get more into industrialization next week, so I'm not going to spend a whole ton of time on this. However, this is actually a really good list for you on some of the key factors on why England's going to be the industrial leader, where it says geography, the coal and all that stuff we talked about, the capital, the strong economy that they have, free trade, that England's got this great navy. They're moving around, trading with all these people. Labor supply, they've got the best working class, most freest working class. and a friendly political environment, and that they don't have an absolute monarchy. They support business, support merchants. So these are a couple factors on why England's going to take the lead in industrialization. And we'll get into that a little bit later. It's just in there in the notes. I figured I'd just go through it real quick. Now, where we'll end with today is the Enlightenment. If you highlight it, or if you just look at Enlightenment there, I highlighted there where it says the Enlightenment is a period of time in which intellectuals were called philosophes, began to question the traditions of society, and took the universe in a scientific and critical light. So just to draw a connection here, the scientific revolution is just that. It's really just about science and to a degree math and trying to figure out how our universe and how our world is working. When those scientists start to prove Greeks and Romans wrong, then what starts to happen is people start to think, well, maybe we've been wrong about a lot of things. Maybe there shouldn't be nobles and peasants. Maybe we were wrong about, the power of the Pope. Maybe we were wrong about this. So once the Greeks and Romans, that ideal is shattered, then the Enlightenment is, okay, now we're going after everything. We're going after government, religion, what the heck else is wrong here? So this is kind of an expansion of the scientific revolution and mainly more in a philosophical, political, civic type way. Now, underneath the philosophies there, I've got some characteristics of the philosophies. I really don't think you're going to need to spend too much time with that. I highlighted the last one there, enlightened despots, and just remember that enlightened despots are rulers that have embraced the Enlightenment. I think in our notes next week I'll go through these again, but just in case it doesn't pop up, the enlightened despots are considered to be Frederick the Great of Prussia, Catherine the Great of Russia, Joseph II of Austria, and the fourth one that you could throw in there is Napoleon. I've had people ask me about Maria Theresa. She's technically not considered an enlightened despot. I think maybe she could. I think Maria Theresa probably could be an enlightened despot more than Catherine, to be honest with you. But she's not considered it, so don't put Maria Theresa down. So those are enlightened despots. Voltaire, my man, he is probably Mr. Enlightenment. Voltaire is a French noble who's going to reject his nobility and basically write and become an activist against almost everything he considers to be unjust in Europe, from organized religion to government abuse. Voltaire's there. He is, as was said many times, he is the most dangerous mind in Europe. He's a troublemaker. Voltaire is going to be kicked out of France. He's going to write a book called Letters on the English, where he's going to praise English civil liberties and English democracy, and this kind of gets the ball rolling for Voltaire. His greatest work will be the Candide, or, to be candid or to be frank is really the book. And in this book, he will go after everything. Democracy, monarchy, nobility, religion. One of his most famous quotes is from the Candide is, "We must crush the wretched thing," and what he's talking about is organized religion. Now, it's important for you to realize that Voltaire's not an atheist. I wouldn't play that card. Voltaire is what we might call a deist. So Voltaire believes there is a God. That's about all the Voltaire will do. He doesn't know if God cares about him. He doesn't know about any of this Jesus stuff. He doesn't know about any of that. But he does believe in a God, so he's not an atheist. The last thing I want to mention with Voltaire is Voltaire will strike up a friendship with Frederick the Great of Prussia. They're going to have dinner together a couple times, and this certainly is the foremost example of an enlightened despot. Frederick sitting down with Voltaire is pretty impressive. So just know that Voltaire, troublemaker, Candide, he's a Frenchman, and I think you should be good with Voltaire. All right, let's see here. Almost done. If you flip over there, you'll see Diderot. Just know the encyclopedia. That's really it. Just to elaborate just a tiny bit further, there's a lot of people that didn't want the encyclopedia done because the encyclopedia is going to be a collection of all the knowledge in the world, which is not only all the triumphs, but all the failures. and some people didn't want the failures in there for all time. So there was a lot of controversy there, but it is done in encyclopedia, and that's Diderot. Montesquieu, he's an important one. Spirit of Laws is his book. Separation of government powers. Our government is built on that, checks and balances, legislative, executive, judicial branch. Also, Montesquieu says in Spirit of Laws that one form of government does not fit everyone. Especially as Americans, we're guilty of this, is we want to have everyone in a democracy, but Montesquieu says that's not how it goes. You got to look at the people and the geography, and some people want a monarchy and some people want a democracy, and that's how it is. So that's Spirit of Laws. Immanuel Kant, he's a difficult one to explain. He basically believes that like reality and perception are very, very different things. So like how people perceive what's going on and what's actually going on are a lot of times very different things. And he's probably most specifically referring to religion versus reason. That religion has its use. There are things that religion are very, very important for. We live in a time for it right now. And then science and reason has its use, and that they're really separate things. You really shouldn't combine science and religion. That's not going to play out well for you. But he finds both to be useful in a human's life. So that's Immanuel Kant. And our last guy there, Beccaria, On Crimes and Punishment, is his book. And just know that he is advocating against not only the execution of prisoners, but also the cruel torturing of prisoners. He feels that the torturing is really, really excessive. And he's also anti-death penalty. And Beccaria's main reason is that at some point you're going to kill an innocent person. Like there's no way around it. You're going to do it. And it's not worth killing all those other people to kill one good person. So that's Beccaria and On Crimes and Punishment. And that is all I got for you on this Friday. Not near as long as it was last time. I looked at that last time. It was like 39 minutes or something. I'm like, oh my God, I got to shorten this down. So at this point, I will take any questions you have on the scientific revolution, Enlightenment, DBQs, anything like that I can help you with. Just turn on the mic and shoot away. Nothing? All right. I am going to do the next Google Meet on Tuesday. And it'll be about this time too, like 1 o'clock, and I'll post it early. And I'm recording all these, so I'll be putting this on Google Classroom here pretty shortly, so if your friends couldn't make it because they had another class or, they just don't care or whatever's going on there, they can still watch it on Google Classroom whenever they want. So it'll be there for them. All right, well, enjoy your weekend. And next week I'll be back, and I think we're going to be doing industrialization and I think like some of the reforms, like corn laws and all that kind of stuff, which is yuck, but we got to do it. So have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you next week. Thanks.
Wait, Mr. Whiter.
Yeah.
For our DBQ, saying like our thesis for our like example or something, what if it's in one of the documents?
That's fine. You can use an example in the document to get the thesis statement. But where you will run into trouble is you will not get historical evidence for that fact.
Okay. Thank you.
So because it's in the document, so they won't give you that. So if you put that in your thesis to support your thesis, and then later in your paper you bring in some facts to get that historical evidence, then that's fine. Like you'll get all your points out of that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good weekend.
You too.
See you.